Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Virtual Railroaders Academy. I am Casey,
And I am Nick.
and tonight we are railroaders playing Railroads Online, and this is the Intro to Railroading seminar.
And we're happy to have you in our class.
Yes, welcome. I hope everyone brought their textbooks with them.
Yes. Though notes will be, well, not notes, but handouts will be available digitally as required.
Yes. And tonight we're kind of going a little broader than a little bit of a broad topic. If you've followed us for a while, you've noticed we're on social media now. So we figured let's go back to basics and just kind of reintroduce everything and move forward from there. Sorry, hard to think about my switching move and talk at the same time as I'm trying to figure out what we're doing. I assume that's you on with me there, Nick.
Yes, that is correct. I've got your brakes knocked off on the caboose. Well, as a Pennsylvanian, when you talk about a broad topic and we're on 3-foot narrow gauge, that takes my mind to a very specific time and place. That may be in central Pennsylvania. Let's say it's east. It's an east broad topic, perhaps.
Wow, you're reaching.
Let's not get off track here.
Well, yes, but I'm nothing if not dedicated to Old Eastie.
Wow,
but we are glad that you are joining us here for all of my wonderful jokes and along the way some learning about actual railroading practice from those in the know. And we are on the Asokan, Mohonk, and Western as realized in Railroads Online, which I'm sure you guys are well familiar with as a game. But we are using it as an educational tool and a game.
Plus, you can have fun and learn at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
We got to do a bunch of crisscrossing over to get to our cordwood cars over there in the stub yard. But I guess we can start by presumably some of you have seen our trailer out there. And if you haven't, well, you're already here, so you don't need to. But if you want to watch it, you can check that out on Nick's channel.
It does a wonderful job of showcasing some of the teaching moments we've explored before tonight's official launch, I guess we could say, as well as some of my, I'd like to think, wonderful joke-telling and storytelling abilities.
A lot of puns. We got a lot of puns out there, but you know, we are a very punny group of people.
And we encourage you to join in the learning process via the chat. Excuse me. Via the chat, you can submit questions, suggestions, comments, requests for me to stop telling puns. Everything except the latter we will pay attention to. Maybe if it gets overwhelming, we'll even address the pun issue. But simply put, we see this as a conversation, and we want to be giving you the type of content that you are interested in watching and learning about. A lot of these episodes are going to have specific lesson plans that we will be covering. This one, as Casey said, we're looking at the broad picture of railroading as a whole, and some of the topics that we will be covering throughout this semester.
Yes, everyone here is a railroader, so like we want to educate. There's a lot of misconceptions out there. Nick, you want to pull the pin? We'll kick this car up.
You got it.
There's a lot of misconceptions about railroading up there and how it works, and Pinsfold. How it works, how it doesn't work. So we figured why not, instead of as railroaders always complaining about the misconceptions and making fun of them, why don't we get ahead of those and start explaining how things work to a new generation of people, or people who may be interested in trains but aren't quite sure how to get involved or don't know anything, so they're scared to ask questions. So that's
We
our...
do not judge.
No, not... we all started off not knowing anything. So we're trying to get some of that knowledge out there. And we're gonna, like I said, tonight's a very broad topics of railroading in general, to allow for a lot of questions. One car. Half. Truck.
And good. And pin is in.
Pin's in. I think there's a handbrake on either end.
Yeah, that was my guess. I'm running to the other end now to knock that one off.
Alright. Squiggy, you're probably going to want to pull up to the coal mine branch and wait north of the crossovers.
Okay.
Since Hostler since you and Hostler are going to need to work off the long siding.
Alrighty.
Handbrakes are knocked off.
Handbrakes are knocked off. And this will, we'll definitely be talking about specific topics. But then you're also just going to get thrown into official and unofficial communications about what's going on here on the railroad. Wow, this feels really sluggish.
I can check and see if there's others, but...
No, I've been feeling like the trains have been very sluggish lately.
Even the trains are waiting impatiently for the update to the game.
Yes, we are all waiting, sitting there, sometimes impatiently.
Yes.
I was having this conversation earlier about the personality of steam engines and trains, and like, they don't really have a personality because it's an inanimate object. It's just the way the wearing of tolerances happen, but it feels like a personality, and I think that's what really counts. Is you feel like you're dealing with something that has a personality. It's telling you what it wants to do. It's telling you what it doesn't want to do. And if I haven't had my fair share of days where the engine just didn't want to wake up in the morning no matter what I did. The engine's like, no, I want to sleep in, and really trying to force the fire to start building steam. And that's what it feels like. This feels like old 39 here. One car. Old 39 here doesn't want to pull.
You're in the clear. Good to shove 8 cars.
Alright, here we come, 8 cars ahead. Oh, you know No, you go.
I was gonna say, from interviewing Lynn Modinger on the Roundhouse podcast, he was one to say that the Strasburg Railroad's engines each have different personalities. And if anyone would know the personality of steam locomotives, it would be former Strasburg Railroad president Lynn Modinger.
Oh god, yeah. I've heard tales of the personalities of those engines. It's all true.
3.
3.
2.
2.
1.
1.
Half.
Truck.
And pins are in.
Pins are in. Hostler, you and 400 have permission to depart when you're ready.
Copy that. Engine 92 departing Hill Valley.
And you saw your train order, right?
Yep, was it train 400, correct?
Yeah.
Well, Lynn Lynn would know not just the personalities of the engines that are currently operable there, but also of those that aren't, such as Pennsylvania Railroad 1223, which he described to me as a prima donna of an engine.
I've heard that. I I work for short line rail. I was doing the math the other day. This is my 12th year working for short line and tourist railroads. Um,
Really?
a very fast 12 years. 10 of which as a fireman, 3-ish of running. And just I've worked for. We'll talk about like who we are after the story because I think it's a fun story. But our medium-sized Mikado, it is a prima donna, 100%. If you do not give her tender love and care, she will not do anything you want her to, at all. She will beat up students and only students. I could be a student on the engine today, get signed off and qualified that night. The next morning, come in as a qualified fireman, and the engine will behave perfectly for me. The engine has an absolute hatred of students. Kick your butt in the best way possible, because you learn how to deal with you learn how to deal with the bad. But absolute, I come in the morning and I pat the engine on the back of the cab wall and I say good morning to it. And ever since I started doing that, I stopped having a hard time with the engine. It's weird, it's freaky. I believe in the whole bad juju thing. But I'm superstitious that way.
Well, and if it's the one that I'm thinking of, I wouldn't have thought that one would give issue.
Yeah, the saturated small Mikado.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Huh.
Yep.
Jeez.
Our 280 is a princess. We'll just she's the beauty queen. She will just do whatever you want. Is pretty easy to work with, pretty easy to fire, and will walk away with a train like it's nothing. Whereas this mic it'll stop the rotation of the Earth if you really let it. But it'll make you work for it in the process.
That's certainly a daunting thought to have an Earth-stopping engine.
And it's not even a climax.
I was going to say, when I think of Earth-stopping engines, I think of the climax and how the climax is in this game, where I feel like nothing is going to come between it and where it wants to go. As the Quarry folks intended, of course.
Naturally. I'll save my bashing of logging of geared engines for another stream.
We'll have plenty of time to get into which of the Trinity is the best. Spoiler alert: it is the climax.
No, it's not.
That's only because you haven't actually pulled a throttle of one, right?
No.
You've
had to
been
think
on
about
one
it.
though.
I have been up at Clerk's Trading Post. One of my first cab rides, actually, as a child, was riding in the Climax up there.
They're super cool, the Clark's Trading Post folks, because that was my cab ride opportunity. And yes, it's an adventurous cab ride, but that's exactly what you want. An adventurous, memorable experience. Such as we're hopefully giving you tonight on Railroaders Play Railroads Online.
Yes, we are always an adventure. But everyone here, you guys may know Nick, host of the Roundhouse Podcast. You probably remember him from many years past from At the Rail Yard. as everyone always brings up.
Hey,
Uh,
I'm happy to have had a part in creating something so memorable as at the rail yard.
But I'm Casey. Like I was saying earlier, I've been working for tourist and short line railroads for the last 12 years. 10 as 10 as a fireman, 3-ish as an engineer. 2 of those I was a student. But it was still sitting in the right-hand seat running an engine, so I count it as time as an engineer. That's how I was marking up on the job on the crew register. Worked with everything from steam engines to first-gen diesels, Jeep 9.7s, SW1200s. Love those little pups. If I had to pick a favorite diesel. And then steam engines. Worked on a fair number up and down the east coast here of the U.S. And with us tonight we got Squiggy and Hostler, and I don't know if they want to introduce their experience, but they're more than welcome to. And we just kind of have a revolving cast of characters who've worked on the railroad in some fashion or another.
You want to start, Hostler, or you want me to start?
You can go first.
Okay, well, hello, my name is Squiggy. I volunteer primarily at a small heritage railroad and museum. Most of my experience there is involved as a brakeman. I could soon begin training as a conductor at some point. We'll see.
Woohoo!
But I've been involved in other roles. Car hosting. I've been head end brakeman. Had experience with that. I've also been involved with the steam crew at said heritage railroad. Even been involved with anything from the maintenance of the locomotive to firing. I have the only experience I've had with firing steam locomotives is with oil-fired locomotives
I've never done oil.
so far. Yep.
Train 400's passing meh.
Copy that. 400's through meh. We're not in the hole yet, so expect to wait.
Yeah, and it's something that I've been doing for pretty much 10 years now.
Nick, you want to get this switch behind us as we cross over it?
Yep, will do.
I feel like we're going to be having a one of our famous rolling meets here, which we only ever seem to have on stream and never when we're just playing by ourselves.
Which is better than the opposite. It's better than if we were constantly telling you guys, oh, you should have been there when we were, streaming, or when we were running this game off camera. And you'd be looking at us, virtually speaking, looking at us and going, well, how do you expect us to be there when we can't be there? But you are here, and we're glad that you're here.
And maybe you all get to see some interesting shenanigans.
And learn something along the way.
Am I through that switch yet?
Yes, you are, and it is lined for the main.
Alright, I gotta run up and get the other switch. Oh wow, that switch stands really far away. Who designed such a ridiculously long siding?
The answer when we return. Hint, it's the person who asked the question. Or was it our chief over-engineer?
It was Rudy Lowry.
Oh, it was.
I think.
It was. Okay.
Oh yeah, because when we realigned the route, the switch got moved back quite a bit.
Well, that would explain it. Once you see more of the railroad that we are operating on through the episodes, you will come to see a theme emerge in which there are very heavily engineered pieces of this railroad that are arguably overkill. Maybe not even arguably, but they just are overkill.
We may end up at an area that is designated as overkill tonight, depending on how many jobs we get through. You know, we are passing one of his wonderful designs right now, too. Did you get that switch as we go across it?
I will get it.
We are passing through the wonderful station of Meh. And if you type !map into chat, you will get a map of the entire AM&W with location names, so that way you can follow along with where we are, if you so choose. Let me know when you're back on, Nick. I'll rip this throttle back out.
I am back on.
Met is one of my favorite places. That is one of my favorite things that he's designed. It helps, helps sell the fact that you're along a railroad in this game, which I like. I think it's needed.
Meh got its name because, while it is particularly nice, it does pale in comparison to some of the wonders that one sees along this route. And it was, in some ways, designed to be your average intermediary stop. That's why we settled on a name that was meh. It was okay. The average.
Mm-hmm. It's become so much more than that, though.
Yes. Meh. It is meh truly meh? This is the type of question we must ask ourselves.
The existential questions we have here on the AM&W.
Yes, we get into some very good ones. So, that may be a good place to kind of get into the lesson, even though today's episode is more loosely structured than some of the ones we'll be getting into, is the design philosophy of the Ahsokan, Mohonk, and Western, or at the very least, like, what was, when we're thinking about how railroads were built and designed, and Railroads Online being a game that allows us to build our own railroads, what was your approach to how to link these different industries? And I recognize there's a lot of ones to discuss, so maybe you could talk about just this main line we've been traveling on and the 2 yards that we're going between Plateau and Hill Valley.
Yeah, so Hill Valley, which is the spawn, the freight depot, is my main yard. That's where 90% of the trains, 99% of the trains originate and terminate. And the railroad split up into 2 divisions, Northern Division and Southern Division. The Northern Division, the main line runs from Hill Valley to Plateau Yard, where we just were, which is roughly where the waterfall is on the west side of the smelter. And if you're looking at the map through !map, you can see where Plateau is. Plateau Yard is kind of the hub for where stuff branches out. Well, I guess since recent building, the main line continues up towards the coal mine and the town of Ahsokan. And at Plateau, it branches off to the iron ore mine, and then there is the smelter operations with a SCH as our friend Rudy has deemed it. And Plateau is kind of the hub of, I don't want to call it interchange operations because they're not different railroads, but it's kind of the hub of the mining district and the smelter district. There's a lot of setouts and pickups going on over there. As you can see, we're running back extra with some cordwood cars that needed to move rather quickly, so it was just easier to throw them on and to run them back as an extra train than it was to wait for a next train southbound to take care of them. Throttle like that. I gotta run ahead and get a switch.
I got it. What are we
We're going
going into?
west side of the freight depot, east side of the freight depot, right?
The east side is left.
North, south, east. Not the main line. The short
So
side of
not
the freight
the arrival yard.
depot. Yeah, not the arrival yard, the departure yard side.
Okay.
You want train 400 down the main?
No, 400 should come in on the long runner
Oh, good.
to make it easy to work the yard.
This one here?
Yeah, that one you're standing on.
Okay.
Train 400 entering Plateau Yard.
400's into Plateau. And then you and Squiggy can work that yard to get your hoppers cut onto the rear and your stake flats set out.
Copy that.
So where was I? Yes, mainline. So Plateau's kind of is kind of the hub of those three industries and setouts and pickups to be able to go up to or down to in the case of the Schmelters industries. You pick up your helpers there, and continuing up towards the coal mine, there is a little town of Asokan, just underneath that giant waterfall in the that'd be the southeast corner of the map. They're railroad north, if you will, because any train leaving Hill Valley is northbound. And we can get into that when we talk about timetables, is what's a northbound train, what's a southbound train, and how railroads deal with that, because it gets pretty weird. So Asokan's kind of the terminus of the main line. And then heading south, the next terminus is Mohonk. As you weave your way around through the oil field, past the ironworks, and into the town of Mohonk. And then through Mohonk there is a branch up to the refinery. And my thought process, and then there's a branch for the logging camps and the sawmill. And my approach when coming up with all of that was I wanted it to feel like a railroad. I wanted it to feel like what it was like when I was working freight, in that you're traveling along a line heading to places. We'll run around, grab the caboose off of this and kick it onto the caboose track and then tie your engine down somewhere.
Okay, you're disconnected.
Alright, I'll meet you around. So our yard works. Over here on our right is the departure yard. All trains leave out of it, whether heading northbound or southbound. Far side over there is the arrival yard. Everything comes in there, save for one-offs like this where it's arriving on the depot track. I wouldn't call it a classification yard, but as stuff comes in and departs, as stuff comes in, there's a yard crew that's generally making things up. Sometimes we do that on stream, sometimes we don't. Kind of depends on what the overall topic is for the night. There were a lot of empty cars in here this past week, so all of the trains are more or less made up and ready to go out to their various industries for setouts, deliveries, pickups, what have you. And the logging branch, which I call the woods branch, kind of operates as its own. It really operates as a as its own company more than anything else. Plus, it has kind of dedicated power with Heislers. And, the train for the coal mine, it's going to come back with empty stake cars. Those cars are going to get turned around and sent back up the woods branch to get loaded at the sawmill and become a next train up to the coal mine. So the railroad works in kind of constantly turning itself over. And there's no set consist on the railroad. Cars are constantly moving around. Nothing's in any sense of an order.
Both the woods branch and the smelter operation make me think of the paper railroads that used to exist, where you'd have what might sound like a completely unrelated company, but really it was the same railroad, parent railroad, and basically just a shell. Like, I think about the one that comes to the top of my mind is the New York Central had such an arrangement. There was a railroad called the Amsterdam, Chuctanunga, and Northern, and sounds very much like its own thing, but it was like a 2-mile industrial switching railroad in Amsterdam, New York, that switched the carpet mills and always used New York Central power. So, yes, I don't think it was ever an independent thing. Why it was set up in the first place, I don't have that advanced knowledge of it. But simply to say that there's plenty of cases where a separate thing existed. I suppose perhaps a well-known one, although this was originally a separate entity, but I think about the Springfield Terminal Railroad and how it was originally its own entity, and then it was kind of a shell entity for the Guilford transportation system.
There's also the Cleveland Terminal is basically New York Central as well.
True. Although that at least had its own motive power.
True. That all
but yes.
ended up on the Central anyway.
Yeah. That was a nifty operation.
It's cool. I dig it.
I mean, you can't go wrong with electrics. Won't be seeing much of them here on the 3-foot, but electrics are cool.
Well, I don't know. Apparently there was a planned electric 3-foot railroad in Silverton up into the mines. So maybe one day we'll have an electric railroad. We'll do away with steam power altogether and just run electric MU units.
I would be in interurban heaven if we saw that day. I mean, I think if we all have our favorite railroads, but if I had to cite a favorite type of railroad, probably the interurban as a mood, as a vibe.
As a vibe.
Yes. Those of you tuning in and watching along, encourage you to share in the comments what type of railroad you enjoy most. Are you a narrow gauge nut? Are you a maglev maverick? A interurban industrial light? Whatever the proper terminology may be, you've got a half car to go.
Half. I was waiting for the monorail alliteration truck.
And you are good. And handbrake's off, so you're good to pull forward.
I can get this car kicked over if you want to line the switch with the caboose track and get 93 fired up.
Yeah, I will get us lined.
The caboose track's on the other side of the freight depot.
Oh, okay, that's why. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm not seeing enough cabooses here for a caboose track. And then 93.
Yeah, that'll be our next train out. We'll head up to the refinery. Because I have fixed it, and I think that'll be a fun one to do.
Ooh, goody, yes. I haven't been on it since it was, since we braved it with, what, did we have to quadruple the hill on that run?
We had to quadruple the hill on that run with
Yeah,
two engines, which is just embarrassing.
Yes. That's why we did that before we had you guys tuning in tonight.
Yes, yeah, we fixed it, and we can now show it off. And we'll get you see the southern terminus of the main line.
Although we are fond of saying here on the Ahsokan, Mohunk, and Western, there are no accidents. There are no mistakes. Everything that you are to witness has been planned within an inch of its life, even if it appears to be spontaneous and accidental. I can assure you that it was there for a reason.
Everything happens for a reason. Most of those reasons are we planned it for a teaching moment. It's all about teaching.
Yes.
Hoster, do we want these empties on the caboose end of the consist?
Yes, you will. They're lighter than the beam cars.
Oh.
But they will be heavier than the empty stake flats going back downhill. So if you do it now, it saves you a switching move.
Okay.
Which truck do you want 39 on?
We're gonna bring it over to the departure yard number. Wait, I don't need to go and run and look. I have a whole guide for this. 93 is departure 1. As I'm going around and marking things off on my train register. So that way I can keep track here at home, because I am dispatching and talking to you wonderful folks on stream.
I always forget, is 1 the westernmost?
Closest to the freight depot.
Closest to the freight depot. Okay. Then you are lined for 1.
Right, clear the switch.
You fired up with 93?
That is correct.
Right. I'll get far enough ahead. And you'll grab your train on departure 1 and I'll meet you there. Once I get 39 put away.
Alright.
I think I'm giving you enough room to get out and head on up there.
Am I going to be able to run around on 4, or will I need to go down the main?
You'll need to go down the main, because we have the cars blocking on Depot 2. So you'll have to go down the main to the departure yard, then pin on there. Since we're heading southbound.
Yes. Okay. I need to go AFK for a moment, but I will be back after these messages.
Well, folks, we are on social media now, and let us know how you found us in the chat there. So, you know, we did a big social media push this past week, and getting a trailer out to you, finally kicking off the Facebook page for our streaming here. and getting some content up onto Nick's channels, the Roundhouse Podcast and Great Train Layouts. So let us know how you found us. We love to hear it. We'd love to know how you stumbled upon us. And yes, I do mean stumbled, cause sometimes you just stumble into these kinds of great things. That's kind of how I found this game. Because I just kind of stumbled right into it.
Yep, I only found out about this game within a week of it before its release.
Yeah, same here.
Hey, Ryan with the extra cheese. Thanks for stopping in. We're happy to have you here. I'm gonna just move Nick over the tracks, that way I could at least get this engine away while I'm waiting on him.
Anywhere is good. Alright, pins pulled. Good to pull.
Copy that.
Is that inside a foul? I don't know. Looks close enough. So what's a little paint scrape here and there, right? No big deal.
Oh, I left it in a sort of inconvenient spot for you. My apologies.
Oh, I was just about to move it as you were... I just moved it out of the way as you came back. I'll line the switch so you can do your move first.
All good. That's the beauty of modeling in the era of trying and seeing if it works, rather than in the modern era where you'd be required to take a test.
We joke that we pee in a cup here, but this time period there was no peeing in a cup. You were doing this drunk. All right, Nick, you're lined up main towards the arrival yard or departure yard. You're going to departure yard.
Right.
Yes, because we are departing.
We are departing from the departure yard.
Yes.
Which makes sense.
One would think.
In the name.
How about
Although,
that?
that said, I am going to have to arrive in the departure yard before I depart from the departure yard.
Is this a when are they now type of thing?
Probably. Ryan with extra cheese. This stream has been great so far, and I'm excited to follow the series. Well, I'm glad that you've chosen to follow the series, and we're so happy to have you in our class tonight and going forward in the semester. And if you have any questions that you wish to, or topics you'd like us to cover, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and we're more than happy to address them.
You'll notice that my fire has gone out on the engine, and usually we'd call this pulling a Casey. But IRL, you kind of want your fire to go out at the end of the day. So that way you can put the engine to bed and it's not making steam overnight. So let's just say that, I let the fire go out to showcase this of how to work with steam engines. Let your fire go out. Safety's no longer piss and steam.
Actually, in this case, I'd assume that was deliberate.
It was deliberate. All for the educational moment.
Right. Exactly.
Trying not to use a lot of throttle, use a lot of steam, so that way my pressure stays somewhere where when I come back in tomorrow morning, there's still some pressure and heat remaining, and it doesn't take me a ton of time to get the fire going again. This is the big brain move, folks. This is what you do.
So much about railroad operation is about thinking several steps ahead of where you're actually at now. That's just sort of a mentality that it seems like one has to develop because of how long everything takes.
Yeah, you gotta be like 10 steps ahead of yourself, but not too far ahead, because that's how you end up getting complacent and killed. And it ends up a lot of checking each other too, checking each other's work. You know, I've called out guys who've been on the railroad for 50 years because, you know, we talked about doing one thing, and then by the time we got to doing it 3 hours later, had forgotten what we were doing already.
Ooh, that's not good.
There's so much happening that you need to check yourself. You go, all right, what am I doing with the switch at this meet? And you need to look at your notes, look at your train orders, and try and remember what's going on, because a lot happens. So that's why we rely heavily on the paperwork in the railroad world. And there's a ton of paperwork. Now most of it's digital and hangs out on an iPad, but it's still paperwork. You know, your train orders tell you where you're meeting another train, where you're stopping. They tell you what's going on the track ahead of you. Is there a broken rail that you need to worry about? Is there maintenance away doing stuff on the tracks? Is there a broken down train? It's what the paperwork tells you. Paperwork tells you what to do. So it's easy to forget, but it's also easy to find out the information, so that way it's not less forgetful, but you find out what's going on, so that way you know what to do. And this is even in game, I run it with paperwork. I think you're tied onto the train.
That is correct, and I'm releasing my brakes now.
Finishing up restocking the caboose with firewood, so I will start walking handbrakes back up from down here.
And I think folks would be surprised how much, even in this day and age, railroads operate by actual physical paperwork. Because I've been on freight trains as a ride along, where on short lines that are still using short lines and less than class 1 railroads, we'll say, and they're still writing down train orders or in operating instructions, and you still have bulletins that are written, car lists that are written, or they're typed up, but the conductor's holding an actual physical piece of paper. So even with as much as it is digital, it's not entirely, and I don't know if it ever will be, because there's so much that's still contingent on that vigilance that I think doing certain things manually requires.
And train 400's departing Plateau Yard with helper.
Copy that. 400 and helper northbound out of Plateau, and 701, you're clear south.
Appreciate that.
Oh, your brake should be knocked off. The paperwork's a huge aspect of it. I have switch lists up the wazoo hanging out in my grip from like end of the day. I took it out of my pocket, I tossed it in my grip, and I end up cleaning them out at the end of the season, because that's when I get fed up of having them all in there, when I'm going through and throwing out all the trash that ended up in there over the course of the year. Even our little railroad here virtually runs on quite a fair bit of paperwork when it comes down to it. You go ahead, Squiggy.
Do we want to reset everything for the main?
Yes,
at Plateau?
leave everything for the main at Plateau, please.
Okay.
So, I have a Google Sheet that's a job board, and that job board's governing everything that is going on. It's kind of like our timetable. It's hard to have a true timetable for timetable and train order operations. in this virtual world where time doesn't matter. There's no clock running, so it's harder to have a timetable. But I'm trying to find some stuff now that I can share. But I can't find anything as I'm looking easily. That job board is, anything on there is a scheduled train for the evening. So they just get to run whenever. Whereas Nick and I were coming in on an extra train. So we actually had a Form 19 for that. And it's a piece of paper that is giving us permission to move, and it's telling us we need to meet a scheduled train somewhere so that way we don't run into them, because they have more priority than us. They have more authority to use the rails than we do as a lowly extra. You heard talking to Hostler about waybills earlier on, about setouts that they had to make on train 400. That's another piece of paperwork that's in the game. It doesn't physically exist in the game, but exists on our Discord server, and it's how we govern the railroad. There's railroad rules that exist for this railroad. And Nick, I'm back on. Switches are normal. And those railroad rules are broadly simple, of just defining like the rights of trains and how you get to depart, and it makes it easier for new people coming into the server to catch up with everyone else, but also establishes like whistle signals and what whistle signals we use on the railroad, because you would think those whistle signals are standard, but largely they're kind of dependent on what any railroad wanted to do at any particular point in history. Everyone knows the classic too short blast of the whistle means depart. The rulebook I grew up learning on to announcing that you're moving forward was... Hello, test, test, test.
Yes?
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, that was weird. My microphone, my cat was trying to walk across my keyboard and hit a mute button on my keyboard that I didn't know about.
Yes, we were dying of curiosity to know what your railroad considered as two whistles to
Proceed.
mean. Too short.
So too short doesn't actually mean anything. It's actually too long. It means proceeding forward. So that's what I grew up on, so that's how my rulebook is based around on the AM and W. So there's a lot of paperwork in railroading. It's not just running trains.
And obviously, for a game like this, the rules that you implement are yours to do with as you see fit.
Yeah.
You don't have an FRA in this game telling you how you have to play. That said, the reason that we have them is because it helps to structure the play. Like, yes, you could treat this as a sort of free-for-all and just run the trains, because you don't have real-life consequences of derailments and crashes and so forth. I mean, you can derail a train, but it's so easy to re-rail it in this game as to be barely worth mentioning. But that said, as saying this as somebody who's run a multitude of model railroading operating sessions as well as multiplayer sessions, going back many years even before this game, personally I think there's a fun in having the rules because it gives structure. It gives a sense of goal and how you reach that. You think of any board game that you'd play, the board game tells you how you can move your pawn forward and what you can do in certain circumstances. And that's what gives it structure, and that's what gives it fun. If you could do whatever you wanted in the game, then you wouldn't have any sense of challenge to it.
Hear you with your signature going across the crossing.
I'm glad that you recognize it. I'd like to... Now I feel like this is going to be my thing even when I get my hand on the throttle more in real life. That is going to be the way that people recognize that it's Ozark in the cab.
Little Strasburgian.
How Strasburgian specifically? Oh,
Uh,
just
with,
because there's so many different folks there with their signatures?
no, with your extra couple at the end there is very Strasburgian.
Oh.
Reminds me a little bit of Doc.
Okay. I'll have to watch some videos from there and see what people do to notice.
I get
Frankly, if you had the whistles to play with, I mean, frankly, if you had the steam locomotives in general to play with at Strasbourg, why wouldn't you? But the whistles that they have there, I mean, you've got the N&W Hooter, which
Barf.
is amazing.
Barf.
You have the CN, I want to say it's a 3-chime, but maybe it's a 5-chime, but whatever 89's wearing.
Well, that depends on what the current
This is
humidity is outside and the location of the moon in the sky, and whether it's high tide or low tide.
But you can't go wrong with a Canadian whistle.
Or the Pensy 3 they keep on it.
Right, also true. And then the Great Western 90 with the 6-chime, I think they have on it. Isn't it a Reading 6-chime?
It's a Reading 6-chime.
So, which, I mean, I'm not going to be the biggest defender of the Reading 6-chime, but the Reading 6-chime does, like, when people think of steam locomotive whistle, I do think that's what they have in mind.
That or
Like,
the
if you said
SP6. I think both of those I've heard colloquially called the Lionel whistle.
Okay, yeah, I could see that. I mean, you know, on the opposite of the spectrum, you'd have something like the Grand Trunk Western 6-chime, this deep, throaty thing that sounds like you've awakened a monster. Famous, like, for me, I think of the one that they have on Arcade in Attica 18.
Mm-hmm.
That one is so... It's such a distinct sound. Or on Iowa Interstate's QJs. At least the 6988 has it. And it's this really deep thing. And I don't think that's what your average member of John Q. Public would associate with steam locomotive whistle as a texture.
No, I do think it ends up being the Reading 6 or the SP6 as like what John Q. Public thinks of as a steam whistle. Because it's what they hear in the movies, the media, what have you. I guess in 1225's whistle, which, you know, everyone knows the Polar Express whistle, I think.
Yeah, that's true. That said, there's nothing superior to a Canadian Pacific whistle. That is the be-all and end-all. And I say that as a Virginian who is becoming a huge fan of the N&W and the Hooter. Nothing beats a CP whistle. So there you go, folks. You get your serious railroad talk and you get your whistle comparisons all in one spot.
Going down a little bit down, you know, a little bit of the foamer in us all. Because I don't think you end up working for the railroad or liking trains if you don't have a little bit of foamer in you.
Don't forget the New York Central 5 and 6 chimes.
Ah, the New York Central Shop 6 is gorgeous. That's a nice whistle. I've only ever heard it on 425.
Yeah. And what an engine to hear it on.
Yes.
But I
yes,
kind of feel like, I mean, as much as... I feel like this is one of those things where, yes, whistles, sounds, textures, and so forth are often associated as a foamer topic. But I think the reality is even your hardened, seasoned veteran of 50 years at a Tory railroad probably secretly feels the same way. They just don't want to admit it.
Oh, absolutely.
They won't, like, openly necessarily talk in public about how much they really love particular whistle sensitive. But it's there.
I've worked with guys where we get a different whistle on the engine for a day, because we're not a railroad that changes whistles around. We kind of have what we have and we stick with it. Or like we'll end up with a guest whistle on for a day, and they will bitch and moan about how they hate this stupid steamboat, like long bell, 3-chime steamboat whistle, and rah 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 rah. And I'm just like, really? Like, it's that big of a deal that you're going to just complain about how like the engine sounds terrible? I don't get it. And don't get me wrong, I have my whistles that I hate. Your aforementioned Reading 6-chime. The thing sounds great at 40 miles an hour from 10 miles away. But up there in the cab, it'll make your feelings fall out because of the high notes.
Yep.
But if it's on the engine, what am I? I can't do anything about it. It's on the engine. It's bolted to the boiler. It's hot. It's heavy. It's gonna stay on there until someone decides to take it off, and I'm fine with that. And
Yes.
we were talking about overkill earlier, and we are passing through what is probably one of the most overkill areas on the AM&W mile-long yard,
This is over engineering at its finest, folks.
which you can see if you type !map into the chat and find the mile-long yard just below the oil field as we snake around and into the gorge. And this is part of what I was saying earlier about trying to make everything feel railroady. The original locations of the oil field, they're the locations of the oil field and ironworks and refinery. Everything tends to feel a lot like an extended yard job out of Hill Valley or the freight depot, as you can see on the map on my screen. So I went around the back of the oil field and through the gorge at the bottom corner of that map up towards the refinery and ironworks, and have a branch line going off to the ironworks to kind of add more to that railroady feel of it, which I enjoy to operate. I think it makes operating sessions more fun, and I think it helps bring a little bit something extra to streaming this and sharing it with you folks viewing, as you get to see a more railroady railroad, if that makes sense. It's more point to point rather than branching out in every which way towards various industries.
And it's really scenic in this part of the map. This is possibly my favorite section in terms of just how the scenery around us looks.
I really like this portion of the map. My favorite is the route up to the coal mine. I love the river running a lot.
Oh, that's true. River running's number one. This is a close number two, though.
Yeah. This really moved up in my book once I fixed the line to the refinery in terms of cool factor. But it's, I really want that, create that feel of railroading that's very point to point, and use what we're talking about to join up with a tourist railroad or a museum and get involved in preservation that way, or bring it to your own virtual railroad in Railroads Online in your own time and your own operating sessions, or bring it out to your model railroad club. This isn't just applicable to running trains in the real world. This is applicable to the hobby as a whole, and different ways of. Because one of the things, when we were talking about the whole paperwork aspect, one of the things I enjoy about doing this is that it makes me feel like I'm out there and running trains like I do in the summer season. But I'm doing it at home from my desk with my friends. And it's like running an op session, and it's like, I feel like I'm running trains back in 1880 whatever right now. It's cool. It's a little bit of a role play element, I guess, even though this is what a lot of us do. But there's still this role play and immersion that you get out of a video game. And you can carry the things that we talk about doing this over to different aspects of preservation. As long as you don't be a know-it-all about it, because you never know everything. I don't know everything. Squiggy doesn't know everything. Nick doesn't know everything. Hostler doesn't, we don't know it all. And if
I feel like there's this pressure. one of the interesting elements of railfan culture, and I don't know. I don't think this extends to actual train crews because I think most people in train crews recognize the importance of straightforward communication. But certainly in rail fan culture, there's this sort of invisible pressure to demonstrate one's knowledge, like your respect and your credibility is contingent on how much you know. Because I see a lot of frustration when people speculate about restorations online, or they answer things based on Wikipedia articles they read without knowing the specific source. And I get that frustration. I feel like it's this sort of this agreed on attitude that, oh, I have to know the answer to this thing. And as the host of the Roundhouse, I am more than happy to acknowledge where I don't, and I'm more than happy to get the person or a person who does. But I do find that that's something that we have to collectively agree to say it's okay to say I don't know. And certainly here on Railroaders Play Railroads Online, as part of the Virtual Railroader Academy, you are always encouraged to say I don't know, because that's where we learn.
Mm-hmm. And if I don't know everything. If I say something that's wrong, I mean, my experience is with the standard gauge short line railroading in the Northeast of America. That's I know a lot, but that's a very small section of the culture, the movement, the way of life. We're playing narrow gauge railroading. I may say something that's incorrect, because I may not know a thing, and I may take a guess based on I may take an educated guess based on what I know from my experience. If you know more, shout something out and say, hey, wait, no, like, this is how this thing works, and be like, oh, rad. I like that. I was just talking with someone about air brakes on Rio Grande engines and their really weird straight air system that was a part of the train line, where they had an automatic brake, but they also had straight air running through the length of the train. So that way you could use both interchangeably to recharge your main reservoir while going down the mountain grades. Don't know anything about that. Learned a little bit about that to be like, I know about this cool thing. But that's it.
Ryan with extra cheese says, finally someone said the thing.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I think we have to. I mean, I've really, in the past couple of years, adopted this attitude, or maybe not attitude, but belief that it's worth calling attention to things that we take for granted within railfan culture, because there's things about our culture that are great, and sometimes it's calling attention to, hey, this is something we take for granted that's actually a really good thing that we do. One of those things, as you alluded to earlier, Casey, is the model railroad clubs and how much railroading is teamwork. And I don't think we always think about that, but what we're doing tonight, us playing the game and to accomplish a shared objective, that's teamwork. If you go to a model railroad session and you're doing an op session with car cards and destinations for your passengers or your cargo, that is teamwork. So that's a great thing. But there's some problematic elements that I think we just kind of live with. But I've recently taken more of an attitude to, well, why do we do that? And talking about that and calling it into the open, because I think that's how we grow collectively, is to kind of say, well, wait a minute, we take this for granted, but why is this a thing? And that, honestly, that breaking down of ideas is part of what we're doing on the show in terms of, like, why railroads work the way they do and why steam engines work the way they do and all that.
I think that's part of my goal with this, is to break down those barriers. I remember being a young person getting involved and feeling like I need to know everything, and then also being judged for trying to know stuff, but also being judged for not knowing anything at all. And I think that's a part of our culture that we need to break up. That I'm hoping doing this kind of stuff does. I hope more people are encouraged to get involved. And I'm not saying the knowledge you get here means you're going to be able to hop up into a steam engine and run it, but you're going to have a little bit more of an understanding next time you hop up into a cab. You're going to have, you start working as a car host, a car attendant, and they're passing around the Form D at the morning meeting. You're going to have a half of an idea of what a Form D is and how it works and what that means for you. Passing off to the left there is the branch to the iron ore mine.
Works.
Ironworks. Ironworks. I want more young people to get involved, and by young I mean under 40. I want more young people to get involved in railroad. It's hard to be, starting out as a woman in rail preservation. It's not a forgiving place. You get made to feel like you need to know everything, but also that you know nothing the whole time as well. So this is why I'm doing this. This is what we're trying to do, is make all of this more accessible. As Nick and I delve onto one of our many philosophical rants about rail preservation, which you can see we are both extremely passionate about.
Yes, and both have a lot of thoughts and aren't afraid to share them. And appreciate you enjoying our sermons along the way of the nuts and bolts of things. We're happy to explore both. I look forward to. I feel like 10 years from now, and this might already be existing, but the more that this technology, the simulator technology improves, the more games and simulators are on the market, the more we're going to be hearing people saying, I got into railroading, whether it be Class 1 freight or whether it be tourist railroads or museums, saying, I got into this, at least in part, because of a train simulator. I feel like that's going to be a growing driving force, especially when we consider this idea that people who remember, like nobody who's alive today was alive in the 1880s to be able to remember this stuff.
I think I know someone who was.
Well, maybe a few, but are they real?
That's kind of where I hope things go with, like, Railroaders Play Railroads Online. Like, these multiplayer sims is like, you imagine being 15, 16 years old, and your local museum hosts a video game night where you get to play a multiplayer train sim with someone who works for a railroad. How cool would that be? Of, like, not only are you, like, getting involved with your local museum, but, like, you're doing something that's attractive to your age group in terms of interest. Like, that's, like, I hope that museums take that on in the near-ish future.
I agree with that. I was actually talking with West Coast Museum recently, and we got on the subject of train simulators, and they have a surviving example of an engine which,
as a quick note, this is Mohonk in the end of the main line, if you are following along on the map.
Right. Pretty
Sorry.
down.
Sorry to interrupt,
No,
just filling in of where we are on the railroad as we go to introduce people to it. And I'm doing a little bit of foaming here, watching the train go by and around the corner.
It's a good location.
It's cool. You may recognize this from the trailer.
Right. That is the spot. Ryan with extra cheese says, First, I find it a bit sad how few young people are in the hobby. I'm still in high school. I haven't found a single person my age who's really interested in trains. I'll do my part to carry the torch, though. And later says video game night at a museum would be awesome.
Right?
To your first point, I am totally with you on that. One of the big driving personal motivators for me in rail preservation is the fact that I grew up in a small town called Meadville in northwestern Pennsylvania. A bit of a desert as far as rail preservation. There weren't really any museums or things that I could easily get to as a wee lad, on my own to become part of learning ops or learning museum business. Train simulators actually did a lot to carry my interest in that transition period of it being something that I did with my dad to something that I do for my own sake. And so I'm very aware of that gap and trying to think and brainstorm of ways to bridge that so that ideally anybody in the U.S. can have can easily find a way to feel part of this larger community, even if you don't live in a town with a lot of rail preservation, or you don't go to a high school with other rail fans. That's something that's very much at the forefront of my mind these days. And yes, video game night at a museum would be awesome. And I think hopefully, I try to, when I talk with museums, to, like, if I see obvious opportunities where maybe they have a surviving piece of equipment and there's a well done add-on for a train simulator that has that piece of equipment, to say, hey, you should check this thing out. Not whether checking that out is because it's something that you could use as a sort of you could have it be an exhibit in the museum, like a hands-on drive this locomotive in the sim thing, or even just as an educational tool to use for social media and showing how this piece of equipment used to operate in a historical context.
Mm-hmm. I think we're getting close to a theory that I have, that like the tourist railroads and the railroad museums are kind of where it's at for railroading right now. The short lines, like that's
Yep.
where it's at if you want to get involved. Class 1s are corporate. They're not. And if you've ever heard a good old-fashioned railroader story, you're not getting those on Class 1s anymore. You're getting those on the short lines. You're getting those on the tourist railroads. You're getting those at museum railroads, and that's where it's at if you want that, like, kind of old school railroad feeling of the brotherhood, the camaraderie, the closeness, the go out and have a beer with your coworkers at the end of the night type of feeling, or you're 18 years old, you just joined the railroad, or you've been hanging out at the crossings watching trains for a while, and the crew invites you up into the cab. That's going to happen at a tourist railroad. That's going to happen at a railroad museum. That's not going to happen waiting at the NS main line anymore.
No. I mean, which isn't to say that there isn't something to be gleaned from a fandom or appreciation of Class 1s, but I think it's recognizing that the Class 1s aren't necessarily where that interest is going to be generated. Like, the Class 1 isn't going to help to direct the interest. I think it's for us as a fan community to look at what the Class 1 does and harness that energy and direct it in ways that help to develop people and develop that interest.
Yeah, Hostler? Wait, Hostler, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was, but we're coming into the coal mine, so I'll save it for later.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
What's up, Squiggy?
I was gonna ask Hostler, do you want me to unload or do you want to unload?
You can unload. I'll do all the moves. Probably gonna want to cut the helper off and send it up the line on one of the passing tracks so it's not in the way.
Okay.
No, I got my start on tourist railroads and short line. I got my start on a short line that also had a tourist railroad component. But like my first day there, hanging out with a friend, I got invited up for a cab ride, and fireman handed me the scoop and said, "Here, you try. You just watched me do it." And I was like, "Oh shit, this is really cool," and was terrible at, like, absolutely horrendous at it. I don't think I got like a whole scoop of coal into the firebox. Uh, I probably put like 100 pounds of coal on the deck of the cab before I got something in the door. That's how bad I was. But it was fun, and I wanted to go back and do it. And not long after that, once the fireman was like, "All right, give me the scoop, my turn again." After that, the engineer plopped me down in the seat and said, "Hey, you wanna try running?" And was showing me how to run the engine. And that's how I got involved. And that's what you get from tourist railroads. That's what you get from short lines. Is that type of experience. And I'm sure we're preaching here a little bit.
We're probably preaching a bit, but I think it's my take is that it's through reflecting on our experiences that we figure out what worked for us and what didn't, and then we get to the part of the show where we get to not the literal show in the case of what you're joining us here for tonight, but we get on with it, the kind of, okay, how do we take these shared experiences and turn them into things that can build the field stronger and engage people even more.
Yeah,
This is a sharp curve.
that's a little spicy.
That is
Ooh.
like, yeah.
You know what, Nick? That's not a curve. That's a corner.
Exactly. So we survived it. Thank goodness.
We're gonna have to send the MOW a team back out here later in the week. But we haven't had to quadruple the hill yet, so that's good.
No. In fact, I'm seeing signs that we have reached civilization once again. This line is, for the record, you guys did a really nice job on this section.
Thank you.
Really digging it. This is probably number 3 now.
In terms of favorite?
Yeah, in terms of favorite.
Wait until you see, and I know if you play the game, you hear so much talk about the spline update. But I've got something very special planned for our viewers once the spline update comes out in terms of the railroading feel of the game and really selling on that.
Yeah, Squiggy, we'll get 93 turned around on the Y before the train fouls the switch, and then we can continue unloading.
Yeah, I think I should have brought 35 down the other line.
Yeah, it's alright, you can turn it around at Plateau Yard.
Nah, you don't need a Y, the helper.
Yeah, I just put it on the Y to get out of the way. I didn't realize we had to turn around 93.
Now.
You want to pinch that down a little bit more there, Nick?
Yeah, I was gonna say, what is the game plan here?
Yeah, we'll unload these tank cars on the fly, move them over a track, and then unload our do a lot of switching to unload our lumber.
Doke.
You're gonna pinch that down a little more.
I'm pinching as hard as pinches can be pinched.
Okay. Yeah, it's good in there. Just keep maintaining that.
Can do. It's so funny to watch. It's like these black bouncy balls.
Right? Alright, yeah, it's a perfect speed. And I think part of the preaching about tourist railroads and preservation and where we're at is You know, we're on the general theme of railroading tonight, which is such a broad topic, and I think it's very relevant. I think it's very relevant of where like the culture is right now.
In what sense?
In terms of like
Of-
where the culture is with like we're all unloaded, so we can pull on up to that lumber switch. Just in terms of like where, like we're talking about like tourist railroads and like how that's kind of at with like getting the railroading, like getting that old school railroading feel. And I think that's we're preaching a little bit about it, but it's relevant to like what we're doing in this game is old school railroading. We're not that you're kicking cars and is that a switch against you there?
I don't think so.
Oh no, it's not. Okay. You know, we're not kicking cars and flying switches out on tourist railroads anytime soon, but and you could bring it to a stop there, Nick.
Definitely not polling any cars.
No, definitely not pulling. But we're gonna stop. That's gonna stop. Okay. Pins pulled. You can pull ahead to clear the switch you're stopped on. I don't. I just feel like this kind of stuff is like I feel like this relates to like the tourist railroad mentality of just how this game operates. And I feel like being able to preach about that ties into what we're doing here, and maybe I'm just seeing that as a more personal experience of how I've progressed through my railroad career, and I'm having a hard time articulating that. Or maybe you understand what I'm talking about. I don't really know. 2 cars. 1 car. Truck. Alright, that's far enough. Let me come get your pin. We'll kick these down.
I'll
Pins
be
pulled.
AFK for a sec.
You know,
You can give me a gentle shove whenever you're ready.
well, I mean, I certainly agree with a lot of what you're saying, acknowledging that I am nowhere near as far in having official qualifications such as you, but knowing that I want that, knowing that I'm that's something that I'm still actively seeking, and hoping that more opportunities become available for everyone, and that kind of includes me.
That's probably good. You want to pin back onto those flats
Yeah, will do.
while I'm trying to stop these. And this is what's known as kicking cars. To continue getting terminology out there as we work.
And train handling will be its own lesson,
series of lessons.
Right, series. I mean, in and of itself, but there's so much to explore there.
Train handling's a lifelong lesson of railroading. Let's see, what's the best way to do this?
Well, she sees what the best way to do this is. Now is a good time to remind you that we do have social media channels. Obviously, you're watching us here on Twitch, but we encourage you to like us on Facebook and subscribe to us on YouTube. And that way you can make sure that you're caught up with all the wonderful content.
1 car.
Car?
Half. Still a half. Truck. 2 feet. And pins in. Does that hold 2 cars? I think that only holds 2 cars. Set a handbrake there.
It looks like it only holds 2 cars.
Pull that pin there. Okay. Okay to pull.
But yes, we encourage you to stay in touch with us on the social channels, and hope that you are enjoying riding along with us and learning along with us here on Railroaders Play Railroads Online, traveling on the beautiful Ahsokan Mohunk and Western as part of the Virtual Railroader Academy. And we welcome your feedback and input, which if you're joining us live means we can respond to you live, and if
Half
you're
a
not
car?
joining us live means we can respond to you when we see your comment.
Okay to start shoving there, 93. And let us know what you want to see us do. We want to cover content that you guys out there want to see, and cover topics that you want to learn about. Because I can ramble on about, God, anything. Don't let me ramble, because I will ramble on about a topic. I will ramble on all day about train handling. If I could ramble on for multiple days about train handling. I could ramble on multiple days about why the Climax is the worst of the geared engines. So
For
don't let
shame.
me do that. And let us know what you want to learn about.
I feel like we're both people who would be really good at playing PowerPoint karaoke.
Oh
If you're
God,
familiar
what the?
with that.
Oh no! Oh, keep coming back. You got like another half a car.
Oh, got it. Have you played PowerPoint karaoke before?
I have during the pandemic on Zoom with friends. Far enough. Oh, you stopped like 6 inches from the end of the track there. All right, okay to pull.
Train 400, are we spawning these hoppers to load?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we are.
Okay. If we're starting on your end, we'll need to shove back about half a car.
Yeah, copy. Shoving or pushing? Yeah,
Pushing,
pull.
rather, yeah.
All right. Hey, head.
Yep.
Now we're putting these flat cars with the tanks, right?
Yeah, we'll dump them over with the tanks.
Okay, so I'll get lined up to kick them.
Yeah, I'll riding on your hind end here. You got 2 cars to go. And we'll probably say this phrase a million times, but a car count is an excellent unit of measurement on the railroad, because it's something very definitive, and you could visually count half a car. And far enough,
Good.
far enough, 93. Give me a nice kick here. And once you stop, you can go grab the next 2 cars. I'll meet you there.
Doke.
Now, once we're done unloading, Nick, we get to run on over to the loading side, and the first 6 cars of barrels are finally ready to go out here.
Goody,
After playing since November.
Oh wait, oh man, this is, as I like to say, this is truly history in the making. So is that just because this is to the point at which you've been able to generate that amount of load? Because I feel like we've been hauling endless trains of lumber and beams.
It has taken me this long to fill those 6 cars.
Wow.
Part of it was I kind of stalled out because there was supposed to be this impending spline update about 3 months ago now. That everyone was just kind of like holding their breath on, and I was holding my breath on it and not really doing anything. 1 car, 93. Half a car. Truck. 2 feet. Pins in. Okay to pull 93. So I purposefully stalled myself on the game and wasn't making any progress because it was like, well, we're gonna have to redo everything pretty soon anyway. And then, a month went by and we talked about streaming, and I'm like, I should probably start making some progress on that. So here we are, it's taken me this long to do the refinery.
But it means that those of you who are our students tonight get to see the product of all this work and effort. The
Anytime now is good.
The industrial supply chain at its finest.
One more car. Half truck. Okay to start shoving. And this is the fun of switching, is that it takes just as long as it does in-game as it does in real life.
Although the only shortcut is we don't have air brakes, so we're not constantly having to recharge train air here.
Though switching, unless you're switching on a hill, you don't need air.
That's true. I guess you keep the
I've
bottle at that stage.
I've done switching where I never even laced up the hoses.
Yeah, I've done that before, pushing 10 cars up a 3.8% hill with only train brakes, or engine brakes. It's tricky.
Anywhere in here, 93.
Good to pull back one car, 92.
Okay to pull ahead, 93. Look at this. 2 different crews switching on the comms at the same time. Real radio chat. Do we need to do like the noise every time we finish saying something?
I don't know. Half car, 92.
That reminds me of the SpongeBob SquarePants joke.
Wee woo, wee woo, wee woo.
Not that one.
Anytime now is good, 92.
Testing, 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 testing! Oh, testing!
Also a good one. Also not the one I was thinking of.
Alright, now you gotta tell us.
Well, I was thinking of this. I think it was the box episode where where they have the box of imagination and they're having fake radio conversations with each other, and they just start making that noise back and forth, much to the annoyance of our beloved Squidward.
That's a good episode. I'm gonna have to search that clip now afterwards.
Now that I've said that, I really want
2 more cars there, Nick.
Oh, gotcha. I really want a t-shirt that says our beloved Squidward on it.
I'm sure that exists out there. 1 more car. Half a car. Truck of a car. And far enough. Now, come get your pin. And viewers, you may note that I'm calling cars before they actually get there, because it takes a minute for old Hoghead up there in the engine. You can kick me, Nick. Takes a minute for old Hoghead up there in the engine to actually react to it. So you say what needs to happen, especially when counting cars, just before it needs to actually happen.
Good pull back one car, 92.
The anticipation game, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Half a car, 92. Anytime now is good, 92.
That's kind of our job as Brakeman, is to anticipate the need. Anticipate the speed. Easy there, Shaq. Half a car. Truck. 2 feet. And pin. Okay to pull.
I totally planned that exactly as I meant to, and wasn't scrambling to run on the engine that was at full throttle.
Totally wearing out foaming and taking photos?
Uh, no, I was falling off. Top train tip of the day, folks. Do not fall off moving equipment. These are the difficult lessons that you're paying your hard-earned tuition for.
Good to pull back one car, 92.
Yeah, 2 more cars, 93. And those 2 short whistles are just to acknowledge that I've said something.
It's like
Which
we
is-
read each other's mind. I was going to just say whistles are a whole form of communication in and of themselves.
Whistles, hand signals. And that's far enough, 93. I love working with hand signals. Okay, to start shoving back. I love working with hand signals. I feel like you can really start communicating, especially if you work with the same person for long enough. You can kind of be very intricate in what you're saying with very basic hand movements. Hand signals are cool. I really like hand signals. And switching with whistle signals is a lot of fun in-game and in real life.
And you didn't see my hand signal there that was a thumbs up. But I gave a thumbs up.
Half a car. Come on, Big Arrow. Anywhere in there. Second fit? Yeah. Right, 30 plus 6. Yeah, that'll fit. Okay to pull.
All right, 92. We are fully loaded.
Copy that. If you want to hop on 35, run up to the other end, grab the caboose, kick it towards me. I'll put it on this end and then go tie in on the front end of the consist.
Sounds good.
The things you could see if you could see me now. You'd also see my cat Alco sleeping on my desk.
My cat dipped out a little while ago. You guys are going to bring the train back with 92, correct? That's far enough, Nick. Cool.
I assume so.
Yeah, and then put 35 back in the house down there at
Yep.
Plateau.
Yeah, I'll have
Cool.
to use the turntable when I get to Plateau.
Oh, I forgot to get the pin. Pin's pulled.
Did I give you enough speed? Because I started braking there.
No, I caught it just in time.
Excellent.
Railroading.
At its finest. And we appreciate you joining Railroading at its finest, or specifically, Railroaders Play Railroads Online, here on the Virtual Railroader Academy, and encourage you to follow us on Twitch, because it's only going to get better. That feels so weird. I was going to say, it's only going to get better from here, folks. Hopefully you're enjoying it so far, and do contribute to the chat if you're watching us live, and if not, still let us know what you're thinking and what you'd like to see us discuss as topics in the future, because as you can see, this is a functioning virtual railroad, and we intend to use it as much as possible for showcasing a wide variety of subjects pertaining to how they do it in the three-dimensional world.
Alright, pin is in. Okay to pull. And just remember, every time you hit that follow button or subscribe button or like button somewhere, you get notifications about when we're going live, when one of our archived videos goes up, when we're posting on the Book of Faces.
The good old
And
Book of Faces.
You can find all of that in our link tree, which is in the bio, as the youths say. One more car, 93. Yeah, that's far enough. Okay to start shoving. I'm now trying to figure out how we're going to do this.
Do what specifically?
I think we're going to have to go back, grab the caboose, run down to the far end of that long siding, drop the caboose on the main, kick the flats down, then kick the caboose down on top of the flats to get the train in the correct order. I think we're going to have a little bit of zigzagging here. And first car's on the dock. And got about half to go. Far enough. Alright, okay to pull. Switching is my favorite thing to do. In the game, in real life, I genuinely enjoy switching. Yeah, I love the puzzle, I love the mind game behind it, of just trying to piece it all together. And I like switching as a brakeman more than I like it as an engineer. And that's far enough, 93, okay to shove back. 8 to a hook with your caboose.
Which works for me, because I would say that I am the opposite. I enjoy switching as an engineer.
I like the mind game. I feel like it keeps my brain healthy.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. I guess I'm thinking kind of model railroad switching if I'm...
Well, even that. I've seen your model railroad switching as a brakeman.
That's true.
And you can too if you watch Great Train Layouts live.
Yes, which will be live tomorrow.
Half a car, 93.
April 21st.
And you got your hack, okay to pull ahead. To clear the switch of the long runner all the way down.
April 21st, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on the Nick Ozorak channel. That's spelled O-Z-O-R-A-K. We will be continuing to build the Conrail P&L secondary in Train Z Railroad Simulator. This is a layout that was commissioned by fellow AM&W crew member Rudy, who has actually built the layout in real life, laid down his tracks, but wants help figuring out how to scenic his layout, and so I am using this as a great opportunity to... you want to talk about switching? Oh my goodness, the P&L secondary is full of it. In fact, you can point and laugh at my misfortune as I do way too many switching moves. We'll start the first couple of hours with building, and I talk about layout design theory, and then it segues for the last hour into actually operating on the layout. And because it's a lot to operate a train and live stream and interact with an audience, you will get to laugh at my misfortune as
One more car.
Try to do both of those things at the same time.
It's far enough there, 93. Alright, pins pulled, you can give me a kick, and once you've kicked me, if you want to go back, grab the caboose and kick it back down on top, I will catch it.
You got it.
And I think, I think the Great Train Layouts and the Railroads Online, the Railroaders Play Railroads Online stuff is kind of very similar in the topics that we end up talking about, especially when it gets into like the broader operation stuff of, we're talking about the rule book, we're talking about the local freight, we're talking about the extra, the passenger train, and the railroadiness of Railroads Online and the user created little towns out of, we're kit bashing towns out of engine houses. I feel like it all ties in together. And a lot of people tend to think of railroading as its own separate entity from everything else about trains, and it's not. They all are very closely related in my mind. There's railroaders who model railroad, there's railroaders who play Railroads Online. There's railroaders who don't do any of that and just work for tourist railroads or just work for class ones, and it all ties together in a neat little bow.
Am I pulling forward?
Question.
Yeah, you're pulling forward. Yes, Quiggy?
I assume we're wrapping up with our switching up here at the coal mine. I assume 35 is good to run light.
Yes, you are good to run light. There's no paperwork on this one because I'm wrapped up in switching as well.
All right.
Though at this point, to run a extra ahead of a train, I would actually write a train order and say engine 35 run extra ahead of train 401 coal mine to plateau yard. And
All right.
35 and train 401 would both get a copy of that.
All right. Extra 35 is
That's far enough, Nick.
depart.
Okay to kick.
Yes, as you said, I think that the subject of the two shows aligns because model railroading design philosophy is so wrapped around what you want out of your play experience. I mean, for many folks, it's just a simple roundy, and if that's what you like, then that's fine. But if you're looking for something beyond just watching your train go around in circles, then that leads into all sorts of questions about favorite railroads and motive power. Do you like switching cars out, or do you want to go end to end? Do you want to go long distance? Do you want big yards? Do you want small branch lines? And so and envisioning like what this is leading to, and that's a big component of what on the show we call pre-visualization, this idea of being able to see the layout before we're actually building it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that way then you know that the end product is actually isn't just going to look good, but it's actually going to do what you want it to do. And it's going to be satisfying because after you spend hundreds of hours and days working on this thing, you want it to actually be fun to play with.
Yes. You want to run around the train and start heading towards the loading side while we're chatting about this? I got your switches lined. Yeah, I think, the AM and W in particular lends itself to that point-to-point model railroad feel. Very much so. Sometimes it feels like model railroading, but in-game with this. But everything looks like normal sized. I don't know. That's a lot of words there. I think they tie in neatly, is what I'm getting at. And
Yes.
that the shows aren't mutually exclusive. And topics can 100% cross over.
Yep. There's so much to gain when we look at how we enjoy what we enjoy and why we enjoy it, and then being able to explore that further.
There's this.
And Trades with a Z is a very fun game in its own right, especially when it comes to building your own railroad empires of a variety of different eras.
There's this general frowned uponness for the weekend warrior railroader, and I don't ever agree with that.
Can you define that? Because I'm not familiar with that term.
The weekend warrior is the guy who comes out person who comes out and plays trains at the tourist railroad on Saturday and Sunday and then goes home.
Ah, gotcha.
But that's not the only thing a railroader is. They're, you're still out there, you're still working on the railroad. Even if you're doing it Saturday and Sunday, and we call them model railroaders for a reason, because you're modeling railroading.
Yep.
So I think calling that model railroading and tying it in with railroaders makes sense in a preservation style discussion. And I'm sure that's going to piss off a lot of people, but that's my hot take.
Well, nobody's complained about it in the chat yet, so you're okay for the moment. But
I mean, it's not like the time I chat talked the Shays and we lost like 30 followers.
Oh yes, yes.
Alright, we're gonna have to move those cars up. Yeah, this will work, cause we got some zigzagging to do.
Yeah, I think fortunately the benefits of model railroading, unlike Train Sim, where I feel like there's still ways to go to kind of communicate its larger benefits and unlock its potential. Model railroading, I think there's a greater understanding of that. One of my you talk about a love of switching. A place that I'll call out for doing a really good job of interactivity is the Railroaders Museum of Pennsylvania, or Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania, also in Strasbourg, but a separate entity from the railroad. And they have this series of G-scale layouts. I say series because it's like there's 4 separate layouts, but they're all part of the same general setup.
Mm-hmm.
But each is isolated from the other, and they invite kids they'll give the kids a goal for where the cars need to go, and then the kids have to move the cars around to make
far
it
enough,
happen.
Nick. Okay, ahead. And see, that's
5-year-old me adored that. Heck, I could probably say 30-year-old me would still adore it.
Would 31-year-old you still adore it?
That's true. Today is my birthday, so I have to remember that. I have to remember I'm not 30 anymore.
I got a great story about getting your age wrong for off stream, as to not completely dox myself, because the pure number of women who work in railroading in the Northeast is so slim that it's not hard.
Yes. I'm 31. It's all good. I'm too public to go back now.
Train 401 departing coal mine.
Copy that, 401 southbound out of coal mine. And I think that ties in that, like, that, because I know the model railroad you're talking about. And I think that ties in really nicely with what I love about this game, is that it can connect younger generations with railroading at a tangible level.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I love about this game. That's why I wanted to create this series, is because I think it makes things tangible, and it allows us to talk about subject matter that you can't, and to visualize it and actually work with it. Half a car. Truck. And pins in. Let me go check our handbrakes.
And we'll need to get those last 2 cars loaded.
Yeah, what we'll do, because we can only move 4 cars at a time, is we'll spot for the last 2. I'll send you up to go spot these down in front of the Y track that we came through. All right. Okay, to pull ahead. 2 cars. Or okay to pull back 2 cars. Because it doesn't matter which way the engine's facing. Forwards and backwards are always still the same. Smoke box is always forwards. Tender's always backwards. 1 more car. And truck? Anywhere in there. Beautiful. Alright,
The
handbrake
barrel.
set, pins pulled. You're probably going to need to go right to the bumper on that.
I will ram it with efficiency. But the shout out to those of you who are watching us live. What is, or watching on repeat, what's a public model rarer display that stands out in your mind, especially one that's interactive? We'd love to hear others' inputs on that. / know where they are so I can plan my vacations around that. Oh wow,
Oh,
that
crap.
map takes a long time to drop
I can't load these right now.
because
My FPS is too low. They despawn before they get there.
oh
I'll have to load
dear.
these off stream.
Are we gonna have to? Are we gonna have to take a commercial break then?
No, it's not stream. It's player count on the world. I've heard about this bug.
So do you need us to disappear momentarily and respawn in?
No, we'll only take 2 down today. I'll come back up and load these another time.
Okay.
Because that'll just be too much of a hassle to boot out and boot back in.
True.
Well, that's disappointing.
Well, hey, we're still hauling the first drums to Hill Valley. That's still momentous.
It is a momentous occasion. And you got 1 more car to go. Half
Oh,
a
no.
car. Truck. And far enough. Shall we kick these up and you can Y yourself?
Yep.
Alright, pins pulled. Did your fire go out, Nick?
What are you talking about? There's no way my boiler pressure is down to 50 at this exact moment in time. That's ludicrous and crazy talk that I can't possibly allow to be entertained in the context of this forum.
Way to pull a Casey.
Our good pal Ryan with extra cheese. By the way, is there any time when extra cheese is not the way to go in life?
I gotta say
Says-
that is one of my favorite usernames that I've ever heard. I love it.
Says, I haven't had a chance to get to many, but the Toronto Model Railway Club has an amazing O-scale layout. It's fictional and they run huge op sessions with 10 or so operators. They aren't really a public display, but they do open days every once in a while. That would certainly be interesting to see. O-scale, the Canadian O-scale scene is pretty cool. Actually, there's this great layout called Aberfoyle Junction in St. Jacobs, Ontario. And it is ridiculously cool. I remember having a VHS tape that was produced there, and it was like a model version of a Pentrex tape. Like they had trains with operations, and you were following the different trains as they went through their jobs. It was really well produced. I've always thought I'd love to do something as a freelance filmmaker, which I am. I'd love to do something in that spirit someday.
Oh, that's cool. I dig that.
To say nothing of the modeling itself, which was exquisitely done when you consider the fact that probably a lot of that had to be scratch built. Because that club's decades old. I mean, I think they formed in the 80s or 70s or something. I mean, they are...
Oh, wow.
And it's a public display. So you could go see that just about any time.
You're lined up through the line. Now, I think there's a stigma around model railroads where, like, everyone's very macho about it. Like, oh, model railroading. Like, oh, I work on real steam engines. And then, like, you talk to guys and they're like, yeah, you know, like, model railroading's dumb, but I have a model of this engine that I run. It's like, so, really? Like, you still own a model.
Yep.
So you can't be that snooty about it.
I think that comes from this sort of fear of, oh, now I'm a foamer. I can't be taken seriously if I'm a model railroader.
Mhm.
Again, I think one of these underlying sentiments that never gets called out publicly, but just sort of sits there.
Yes.
Of like who's authentic and who gets to like be taken seriously, and this idea that, oh, if I'm a model railroader, I get to be taken seriously by other model railroaders, but not necessarily by real railroaders or the rail fan community at large.
You're getting it all tonight, folks. Intro to railroading. Us talking about how preservation needs to improve. The whole kit and caboodle.
See, you didn't know that you were signing up for a philosophy course, but we're interdisciplinary here.
This is a liberal arts program, after all.
Yes.
That's
And
gonna
as
be...
a communication arts major, that's always going to be a piece of how I look at things.
Can you get yourself pinned onto those? I gotta go set some switches.
Sure.
Plus, we are gonna have to do a flying switch!
Yay!
Where's Rudy? Our resident expert.
Mr. Over-Engineer, yes.
Where is he when you need him?
Celebrating.
He's got quite a few things to celebrate these days.
He is almost as busy as we each are. Alright, I got your switch, Nick. You're lined back up into those cars. So we're, we'll talk more about flying switches at some other point, because they're fun, but we're doing a thing called a flying switch, where once we get pinned onto these, we're going to run like hell. We're gonna highball through the yard, and I'm gonna pull the pin, and Nick's gonna run into a track, and then throw a switch, and I'm gonna go into a different track. And that's how you run around the train when you don't have a runaround.
Yay, old school.
Guess we should have just kicked these cars all the way through. That's where the mistake was. Alright, pins in.
Right.
Alright, so you're gonna go up the unloading side, and you're gonna throw the switch for me to go up the second siding track around our train. And that's what we call a job briefing.
Okay, so I'm going on the unloading track.
Yep.
And you're going on the adjacent track.
Not the adjacent track, because we have a train there, but the track next to that. I've already got one of the switches.
The
So you
adjacent,
just have...
adjacent track.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Alright, pins pulled.
I'm already lined.
Yes, you're just gonna have to line me.
Okay.
This is how railroading was done for a very long time.
Into the
Was-
diesel era, even.
Yeah, for a disturbingly long time. I know someone who can still who learned how to do flying switches in the 80s, which was only, 40 years ago. Seems like it was just yesterday. So say that like it's recent history, but it's not.
Getting your switch.
Beautiful. Switch is thrown.
And watch as the blue beer rolls by.
My God, is anyone out there doing reskins? Can someone reskin the oil to beer?
I mean, it's just such a bright color. I mean, granted, yes, this game could do with a bit more color besides the browns and the reds, but blue
It's a
oil drums.
It's quite a color.
It is. I think they could have only shocked me more if they'd gone with purple, just like Taw Valley.
You mean Queen Elizabeth II?
Yes.
Alright, I got your switch so you can start coming ahead. I'm trying to stop these things. And for those of you who don't know what we're referencing, the Severn Valley Railway in England repainted one of their engines to, I don't know what the official color is called, but the Royal Family Purple. And for the Platinum Jubilee celebration this year.
Yes. Something which I thought was actually quite creative. And
I
quite
think it's
colorful.
cool.
I think it's really nifty. I think it's got people
That's far
talking
enough.
about trains, and that's a good thing.
I am happy when people talk about trains. That means us, involved in preservation, are doing our jobs hopefully correctly, because all press is good press, am I right?
I would think so.
I would hope so.
Our good pal, Mr. Extra Cheese, says you can see the purple across the Atlantic because it's so bright. You can. Ergo, why it's a great idea.
Brilliant idea.
Mm-hmm.
Almost as nice as a large blue Pacific.
Mm-hmm.
In
Oh, yeah.
That's not Appalachia, but
The
Pocono.
It is.
It kind of is.
No, it's not. The Poconos are
further north. Alright, you're pinned in. You can pull ahead 4. 5. Pull ahead 5.
I can tell they wrote that with Times New Roman font. That danger, keep lights and fire away. Like, that's way too pretty of a font.
Mm-hmm.
And now, welcome to Railroaders Critique font choices.
One more car. Half a car.
I was
Truck.
being that I haven't been here a lot,
Far
I was struck by just how Times New Roman was.
Is this going to be similar to your series of Railroaders Critique Railroad Paint Schemes?
Something like that.
Or what makes this paint scheme? What makes this paint scheme great?
Yeah, it comes from me being a graphic designer and knowing way too much about fonts as it is. If you know what kerning is, you're already way too knowledgeable about.
That is a very Times New Roman font. You got 3 cars. Two cars.
Maybe we'll paint an engine purple in this game once
1 car.
that becomes a possibility.
half a car, truck, and pins in. You did not spill the coffee in the caboose. Alright, you're pinned in, all our handbrakes are off, and we can get the heck out of Dodge.
Good to me.
Careful of the spicy corner going downhill.
Yeah, this is, so far, we're having a lovely evening of it.
I should probably drop a quick save here.
Yes, that would be a great idea. I'm gonna stop so you can do that.
Are Squiggy and Hostler in a position to stop for a quick save?
Yeah, I'm at Tank Creek if you want me to hold here while you save.
Yeah, you want to hold there while I save? Where are you at, Squiggy?
I'm stopped at Plateau, about to pull in to turn 35.
Okay, just everyone, Hostler, you ready?
Almost. It's just trying to stop this beast of a train.
Ooh, yeah.
There we go. I pulled a Buster Keaton, so we're all stopped.
Alright. And game is saved. Everyone can highball.
Alrighty.
Except Squiggy, because there's no highballing in the yard.
Nope.
Unless you're Shaq.
True.
Yes, we will be cautious around that curve.
Yeah, the MOW team will probably come out here tomorrow and clean that up a bit.
I mean, it's just about there. Other than that one spot,
Yeah.
it feels pretty smooth. My 17 mile per hour or bust mentality likes it.
Ah, God, we're gonna have to teach you how to judge speed once the speed restrictions come off.
A future lesson on this show, which we appreciate you tuning in and watching as part of the Virtual Railroader Academy, and hope that you are liking what you're hearing and watching so far, and encourage you to contribute feedback so that we know how to approach our lesson plans going forward.
You can
Do we know
always...
what we're teaching next week?
I haven't decided yet. Though I am leaning towards starting to talk about... I'm leaning towards train movement. And keeping it, again, broad topic. But being able to... That allows me to talk a little bit about timetable and train order, a little bit about Form 19s, a little bit about NORAC, a little bit about rulebooks, a little bit about moving a train. So it won't be full-blown timetable and train order, but it will be generalized how trains move on paper. Because we know how they move. They hit the steam engine power wheel. Or electric motor go burr.
Or diesel hydraulics go whoosh.
Yes, or diesel mechanical go clutch grinding noise.
Or turbines go Xiao.
Ryan, what do you want to know about the paperwork side? Of like timetable and train order stuff? Of NORAC? The rulebook type stuff?
I still don't fully understand what NORAC is.
It's a broadly NORAC's operating rule. It's a rulebook. It is a rulebook that was written up by a conglomerate of railroads who all banded together and said we operate in the same area and we all own parts of railroads that were once many different railroads. So let's write a rulebook together. And that's what NORAC is. It's a rulebook. It's like Standard Code or G-Core or the Canadian Operating Rules, I think it's called.
Yeah, G-Corps.
No, that's Western U.S., isn't it? Isn't Canadian operating rules are a different book, I thought.
Could be.
I don't remember. But it's a Norak's just a rule book. And we'll talk about that next week. Maybe I'll bring in some examples with me and share.
Yes, Mr. Extra Cheese says all the things. So, yes,
Awesome. Next week.
we will cover all the things
Next week will be train movements 100 or 101.
And if you're enjoying this, do be sure to share this with your rail fanning friends,
Your railroader
any-
friends.
your great grandmother's cousin,
Your mother, sister's, father's, uncle's former college roommate, even.
this guy that you met once.
The weird dude who hangs out by the train station. Oh, wait, no, we said rail fans already.
Well, yeah, you gotta be more specific than the weirdos hanging out at the train station. There's multiple.
that does allow for a lot of categories. But yes, but do share it because that way then we get more conversation in the chat window, and we love conversation, whether it be amongst yourselves or between us and you.
Yeah, and yeah, maybe you want to talk about something that Nick and I or any of us here don't have experience with, and if I don't have experience with it, Nick knows someone who has experience with it, so maybe we can find a guest to bring on and talk about a topic that we may not know anything about. So, lesson plans will ultimately be coming from what you guys want to learn about. So share us around.
Mm-hmm. As well as some surprises along the way.
Yeah.
We do have some things in mind. I obviously will have these lesson plans, but we have ways to expand the conversation, shall
Mm-hmm.
we say?
The more people we get in here, the more cool things we can do. And we do have a lot of cool things in the pipeline. It just depends on you guys getting involved, asking us questions, and help it really being a part of being a part of the program.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is a course. We're playing a game, but it's it's still a lesson. So classes are interactive.
And railroading, as we talked about earlier, is a team effort.
And
And
railroading
you
is
may
very
feel like
interactive.
you may feel like but wait, I'm just watching you guys on a live stream. How is that interactive? Well, if you're watching on the live stream and you're feeding us questions and we're responding to it, then that's kind of growing the conversation there. But even if you're watching after the fact and you're talking with us outside of the streams or leaving comments, that still is part of the growth overall. The suggestions, the hey, you should check this out, the what do you think of my roster shot of this engine?
Mm-hmm.
Don't know why I thought of the last one, but I'm sure there's a good reason too. I don't know why any railroaders. I don't know any railroaders IRL, but with Discord as my weapon of choice, I'll try to get this out there. Well, appreciate that very much.
Thank you, Mr. Extra Cheese. Discord seems to be the fun new thing that's out there in terms of connecting.
Man, I'm having this vision of like, okay. So how does rail preservation embrace Discord?
Lynn Modiner moderating a Discord server. We'll pay good money to see that live.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be entertained by that.
I think we both know someone who we can probably have some conversations with about using Discord. as
Oh,
a
certainly.
it- thinking of one individual in particular.
I'm not reading your mind on that one, but I'm sure
Well, one of my favorite
whoever you're
people.
referring to is. Oh, right, that person. Yes.
Come on.
I don't know. I mean, yes, I'm sure that person would be. I don't know if that person has done much with it already, but I'm sure they would be interested in exploring it. So yes.
Train 401's entering Plateau Yard. Am I just going to take this thing all the way to Hill Valley?
Yeah, take her all the way home.
Copy that.
And
Man,
you're
this
going to be
is good.
coming in on train register, train 401. You're coming in onto a rival 3. So
Copy that.
third one in from the outside.
Okay, copy that. Rival 3.
I ran ahead of you a bit to Railfan, coming back through Mohonk.
So I see because I have the live stream on my second monitor, so I can see that. I'm preparing accordingly for the Laro treatment.
Gonna Laro it.
Gonna Laro it.
It's, you know, we're serious here, but you gotta have a little bit of fun every now and again.
Oh,
Just a little.
That didn't sound good.
nope.
I assumed that was somebody who didn't want to have fun.
Nope. This is quite a train.
It is. Anytime we're bringing out the Class 70 is a good day. Maybe not quite as good a guarantee as when we're breaking out the Eurekas, but it is still a good day.
Oh, I gotta get back on that train. Don't slow up. I'll catch up.
I have every bit of confidence in you.
And we're passing our passenger train, which is here in the hole. Which we've promised this on stream for a while, but we will get around to running the passenger train. I feel like we need to talk about a lot of things before we can get to the passenger train. Because you need train handling. Really good train handling for the passenger train. You need to really understand your waybills for the passenger train. You need to really understand the rights of trains for the passenger train.
The California Zephyr of cabooses. Well, and we have a few things going right with the train. So we're led by Class 70. We've got the first load of refined oil. We've got tank cars, which are the best cars in this game. And
We're just missing a boxcar.
yeah, just missing. That's true. We are missing a boxcar. But it is a great day. The sun is shining, as it always is, at roughly 5 o'clock. Makes me think of that pop song from the 60s. It's a 5 o'clock world.
Oh, I was thinking it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Oh, that too.
But that's not a pop song from the 70s. That's a country song from like the 90s.
No. I was thinking of, I don't know who it's by. I would sing it, but due to copyright infringement, so I won't sing it. But it could be Google searched.
Yeah, we don't want to get demonetized before we get monetized.
True.
Yeah, 92. You want to back it up.
Okay. Do you think we can make that coupling?
Yeah, it's worth a shot. I still don't know what the hell happened.
What were you guys What happened?
So apparently the 401 freight out of the coal mine decided to be a magician. You know that trick where they cut somebody in half? Well, this one decided to cut itself in 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces.
Cool.
That's a thing.
I'll fess up, it may have had to do with the misaligned switch.
I didn't see any misaligned switches when last I looked.
The plot thing. Well, we'll be sending out We'll be sending out the train master.
We'll have a general board of inquiry as need be.
Yep, you will have to pee in a cup. And you do have 7 days out of service until the results come back.
Which is convenient because then you'll be ready for next Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, which is when we're always live streaming here on the Virtual Railroader Academy.
7:30 p.m. Eastern to 10:30 p.m. Eastern.
Yes. Don't feel like if you don't get on the train at 7:30 that you can't get on. As evidenced by the Casey almost missing the train, you could still run and catch it at 8:30 or even 9:30.
10 o'clock may be cutting it a little close, but you can still hop on.
Yes. And we welcome that because, believe us, 3 hours of live streaming is a good amount of us talking. So we welcome
Rambling.
New faces and new usernames.
I mean, who really wants to hear Nick and I ramble about our every waking thought for 3 hours? We want to ramble about your waking thoughts for part of those 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It's railroading, and one of the things that's interesting about being in the cab is you figure you're with someone for 10 hours, so you got to talk to them for 10 hours. And you'd be surprised the sheer number of conversations that you have, and just the weirdness of topics that come up. So this is just like being on a steam engine. We're talking about weird topics along the way. Always trying to relate it back to railroading here.
Right, because just in the same way that a steam locomotive crew on a tourist railroad may be on their best behavior when they have a rider along, we have you guys along, and we don't wish to bore you. We don't wish to frighten you.
Only a little bit.
Yeah, that may be unavoidable, but as little discomfort as possible.
We are, it's the conversation is the way of railroad life. Of you're with a crew, you end up talking for a long time, and this is sticking with the broader theme of railroading tonight, because there's a lot that goes in the railroading that's just aside from running trains. It's the people aspect, and the people are what makes railroading. So it's the conversations you have along the way. You're talking about, you're sharing railroad stories, which are basically fishing stories. Yeah, they're basically fishing stories. But they're good. Love a good railroading story. You're talking about the book you read, the steam engine you saw, the photo, the video. You're talking about all of these things. And that's all railroading. More than running the trains back and forth. We're all a little bit of a foamer out here as we're doing this. As we're all as I'm running around doing a little bit of foaming, going through Mohonk tonight, because that's, I think, my favorite town on the railroad. Not to offend the Ahsokan station master here.
Well, since we're not talking about the architecture, you're forgiven for that one. We were talking with somebody the other day who made the comment that without people every boiler in the country would be cold, and every rail would be a trail.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good quote, and that it feels applicable here. Cause like yeah, you gotta get involved, and that's what we're hoping to do here is motivate people to get involved. Well, maybe someone in here volunteers or sits on the board of a railroad museum and sees this and thinks, that'd be a good event to do. Is host a local game night.
I'm hooked on that one.
Since I've mentioned it a few times, I am hooked on that idea as well.
I
But like I hope, I hope that someone in here gets inspired and starts working for their local railroad, volunteering at their local museum, goes out and reads a book off our recommended list and gets interested in a thing they weren't interested in before. Because railroading isn't just for rail fans, it's for everyone. And I think there's a way for more people to enjoy the hobby, enjoy volunteering, enjoy working, even as a non-rail fan, and find something about trains that interests them. Again, we're preaching a little bit here, but this is what we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. It's about exploration. It's about trying new things.
Yeah, and it's an intro seminar tonight. It's very liberal arts. We're covering a broad range of topics as we go about doing things.
Philosophy.
Did you say ecology?
I said psychology.
Oh, like ecology. So that's a coniferous tree. It's called that because it drops pine cones. So coniferous cone. See how we get there.
And you will note
that's also a coniferous tree, and so that one, and
so are the other. What is it? 300,000?
I think so. That's just general brush. If we get down nice and low, you can see. Oh, look at that! It blows in the wind. So there's your ecology. Unfortunately,
somehow the trees don't blow in the wind, but the grass does.
I've heard the trees do blow if you stand up close to the branches. Oh yeah, look at that.
Do they? I guess we're all trying to move. Oh yeah, I guess they do. Okay, we're all just too busy playing with choo-choos to worry about the nature. But maybe that's a metaphor for how all of us sometimes need to stop back in life and remember to see the forest through the gently waving trees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Next week, I believe, is a zoology lesson.
Rick 4E says he speaks for the trees.
I love that username. That's my second favorite username.
I'm missing out on that one. Sorry,
There's
guys.
2 Ks there, Nick.
Oh, right.
K4E.
Oh, yes. Okay. Okay.
That's a really clever one. I really like that.
I suppose when it's your last name, you learn tricks. I get that.
God, this yard is such overkill. There's like 6 cars in here, and this can hold like 50.
Well, glad to have you along for the ride as well, Rick K4E.
Glad you were able to make it out. For a trip along the rails.
And not just any rail. The Ahsokan, Mohonk, and Western. Pride of the digital realm of unified coniferous trees.
This yard should have been like a third the size.
Honestly, this is the most egregious. There are a couple, though, that were designed with other purposes that then never got used for those purposes that could probably afford to be downsized. The coal mine kind of comes to mind there, too.
The coal mine does come to mind. The iron ore mine probably doesn't need to be that big.
No, though.
Though that one you do have more potential to meet other trains at because of its location to the smelter.
Yes. So there's something to that one. Sounds.
We have not encountered PSR yet, though I do hear that is impending. The board of directors is voting on it soon. Am I correct, Nick?
Yes, that is true, I'm afraid.
Nick is the resident historian here, writing the literal book on the AM&W.
Yes, but that is history yet to be written.
This is true.
As a famous philosopher once said, no one else can write it for you. Only you can let it in. No one else can read the words on your lips.
For those of you out there, the PSR is Precision Scheduled Railroading. It's the short of the long is you're running less trains with more cars with less organization to those trains. So you're keeping the cars moving, not ever necessarily towards a destination, with as little horsepower as possible. So if that train can pull 25,000 tons and you're putting 22,000 tons on that train, you're basically keeping it within 90% of max tonnage the whole time, and just moving cars around, and eventually they will end up where they need to go. You're also eliminating all of the locals that get those cars to where they need to go, which is that's a problem in of itself.
We're making our case to the board on that one.
We're hoping we can win that.
But if you're a stockholder, then you may be in for good days ahead from your standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
What's the town name of this town?
I don't know. It's a good question. Let me find the map.
You too can find the map by pressing exclamation mark map.
So this map is a little outdated. It is Hurley. Hurley.
How did we come up with that one?
With
that? Oh, wait, I know this. Named for an explorer who was, shall we say, lost. And there was a TV show about how this explorer was lost.
I don't know where you're going with this one. It was just it fit in with the Catskill theme of the rest of the towns aside from Meh.
Oh.
And coming up is the road is called Daisy Lane, and my partner named that one.
I was referring to a TV show called Lost.
I've never heard of the show before.
No?
I'm kidding. Sorry, a little too dry there.
I mean, granted, I have one of the world's worst sarcasm detectors, but I was really lost on that one.
Oh. And folks, we are coming into our final stop for the evening. So please make sure you do have all your luggage with you.
Please make sure you stay seated until the captain turns off the fasten seatbelt sign.
But if you do have any final thoughts, questions, feelings, comments, or concerns, let us know now, or in the comments at the end of the video, because you're watching this on repeat, and you can post a comment whenever you like. But, you know, if you have anything else as we're wrapping up for the evening here in our philosophical dive into railroading and all of that fun stuff and the fun things coming out ahead. Next week is intro to train movements 101, where we're going to be talking about different types of rule books, different forms of dispatching, and general how trains move about the railroad on paper.
And we hope you decide to tune in once again. And remember that if you need a reminder, we encourage you to follow us on Twitch, because then you get reminders that, hey, these guys are going to be streaming.
Yep, you get a notification when we go live, and if you follow us on Facebook too, you will get see notifications when we post to remind you that we're going live later that day.
Mr. Extra Cheese observes, don't forget to take your complimentary likes and subscribes while you leave. Yes,
that's a good one.
Capital idea.
Nick, I respawned back to Hill Valley to line us in.
I see that.
By the way, Engine 35 is tucked away at Plateau.
Thank you, 35, and good night.
Yep.
401 on the move again?
Yeah, 401's almost at Hill Valley.
Alright, copy that. I'll run and go get switches for you too. Oh, the joys of yard mastering. I hear someone whistling and I don't know where it's coming from.
That would be from me.
Okay, good. It's coming from behind me. I can't wait for the spline update to come out so that way we can talk a little bit about route choice in laying out a railroad. And how to take the game and make it feel railroady in terms of where you're going with your trains. Because I think that's something a little lost on. Instead of having loops all over everywhere, which, yeah, it's a way you can run it. Not knocking it. But if you're looking for that more authentic layout, I think that'll be fun ones to talk about. And let us know if you want to see that. Because route building could be boring. It's just us laying the same piece of track over and over again until we get it great. Train 401, you're lined in.
Copy that. Thank you.
And there's another train whistling.
That would be 401. Man, we couldn't have timed this any better. We're like...
That's second rolling meet of the night.
Second rolling meet of the night. And right on the advertised.
Oh, look at that. I see you spawning in around in the distance. Is that Squiggy coming over here?
Yep.
Hey, Squiggy.
Hey.
Well, our best friend with the extra cheese definitely wants to see route building.
And I think that there's something to be said for that when you're talking about kind of the idea of surveying.
Laying out where the route's going to go. And in this map, there's reasons to not do how I'm planning on laying the railroad, but there's also reasons to do it. So I think it'll a nice juxtaposition of I'm doing it this way to make it be more like a railroad, but you wouldn't want to do it this way because it's kind of a pain in the butt. I should probably start bringing it to a stop there, Nick. You're inside this. You're inside. I just want to say that in the wise words of Heist, Smells Like Kenosha just started playing as we're approaching a cornfield meet here.
Nice.
Very good.
Well, as Train 401 pulls in here for a stop, it is where Nick and I need to sign off for the night. So thank you so much for watching the Virtual Railroader Academy Railroaders Play Railroads Online. I'm Casey,
And I'm Nick.
and we will catch you next Wednesday at 7:30. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good night.
Class dismissed.